Well, I was originally a painter, and I started to write. I found myself writing in my sketchbooks, and it reached a point where I noticed there was more words than there were pictures. And at that time, I thought, I really ought to do something about this writing and see if I can get some help with it to help it take shape and form. So, quite by chance, I saw a leaflet for the OCA, saw a course called Starting to Write, and that really began a journey. I do think that distance learning and writing go together particularly well, and that's because I think as a writer, particularly as you progress as a writer, it is a solitary craft, or a lot of it is a solitary craft, and it is, it's important to be able to work alone, and distance learning, I think, actually supports that quite well. When I began with the OCA, I think my biggest influence was my tutors, because they are the people who help and guide you in those early days. And one of the things that my tutors encouraged me to do early on was to read widely and to spend a lot of time not just writing but looking at other writers and reading. And it took me some time, I think, to understand what it was that I do well. And although I did a number of fiction courses, and although I still write in quite a fictive form, it became apparent to me that fiction is not what I do, that poetry is not what I do, and I'm comfortable with that. Well, when I started with the OCA, the online community wasn't in place, and I think it's a terrific development of the OCA has been the improvement in its website and the way that there's been a development of a student association, and there are more events for students. I did attend an early writing workshop that was run by the OCA. It was a one-day writing workshop, and it was from that actually that I realised how important it was to meet other writers. I did use the online forums a little, not a great deal, but I did use them a little. What I did do was attend writing workshops, both locally to where I live, and writing workshops at the Arvon Foundation and at the Tynwyd Writing Centre in Wales. And I found getting together with other writers really important, and that's been helpful for me throughout. So throughout certainly all my level 2 and level 3 courses, I have regularly attended writers' events and sought out other writers. And the input and stimulus from those has been really helpful to add to the structured feedback from tutors, on a regular basis as you complete your assignments. My blog, Views from the Bike Shed, came about almost as a throwaway comment, actually, that one of my tutors said, Mark, you really should write a blog instead of a journal. And I was resistant to that, but they insisted that I try. From that, the blog became a really important part of my writing output, because I quickly realised with the blog that the moment you press publish, that the moment that you put that work out there, that it has a life of its own. And I was fortunate enough to write a few pieces that, for one reason or another, touched some others. I began to get emails coming in. One of my pieces was quickly picked up by the Times. It was a piece about father, and I suddenly thought, ooh, actually what I'm writing here is professional output. The book, which is Counting Steps, Journeys through Landscape and Fatherhood. So the book is a combination of pieces from my blog and essays that I wrote, many of which actually began life as submissions to OCA assignments. So in my first level 2 course was a course on creative non-fiction. And it was through that course that I began to write about landscape and began to write about the astonishment I found through becoming a father. And those essays that I produced clearly spun off into other essays. But a substantial part of the book is actually adapted essays that began life, in one or two cases with only very small adaptations, actually, that began life as OCA assignments. Any course you start is going to be a big commitment in time, never mind the cost of the course itself. It's a huge commitment in your time and your energy, and therefore it seems to me it's really important that you choose those courses that sort of at a real gut level you're interested in, that you want to do, that as you think about writing, whether that be writing for children or writing about landscape or writing about fiction, that you say to yourself, I really want to do that. That's actually something that's going to get me up, that I'm going to spend those long hours writing. And I think the second bit of advice I would give is not to think too far ahead. tried to enjoy each course for what it was. And I actually did enjoy the validation of sending it in to be assessed. I mean, one of the things about writing is that for the vast majority of writers, it takes a long time to have recognition and certainly a long time to be published. And it was important to me, irrespective of the degree, to have those courses assessed. I enjoyed the process of assessment in the sense that I enjoyed somebody being able to say, hey, that was okay, that was good, you passed, you did well.